Good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations, Dad, on getting your master's. I think now, more so in my life than ever before, I really appreciate and really understand and comprehend just how much work it takes and just what getting that master's really means, because I know I'm going to have to go through all that struggle and just strife that I saw you going through, just the hours and just the countless nights of just reading and just writing this gigantic thesis. It's like 45-page paper, and I'm just not looking forward to that. Anyway, so for the past few weeks, there's just been a kind of common theme that's been on my mind lately, and it's just been the thought of just desire. And I remember the other night, I was with Regina, and she's leaving soon, and I remember we were kind of reflecting on the past few months that we've been together, since it's now been half a year. And I was just thinking and just comparing how much we've grown and changed since that first night we started dating. And I was just thinking, and I remember uttering a phrase, because I tend to do this weird thing where something's just on my mind really heavily that I haven't actively processed or actually haven't actively given my chance. It's kind of like just something that's just been sitting there in my subconscious, and just eventually I just blurt it out, just because it's been so heavy on my mind. It's just, I don't know, it's weird, but it's proven very helpful every time it's happened. And so I remember saying to her while we were just talking, I said, I'm so happy and proud of where my life has gone. I'm so happy and proud of the choices I've made to get to this place where I am with you, where I am with God, where I plan on going in terms of my career as a pastor, and just all these other choices I've made. And I was thinking how different that was a year ago, because a year ago I was in just a completely opposite place. Where I was I had just gotten out of this 3-year relationship, and my dad had moved out recently to Singapore. And so I felt really alone in my house. I was just living with my brother after being in a house full of 5 people. And so I remember just feeling kind of angsty, like a teenager, very angsty. And I was like, this is not very Anthony to feel very angsty. And so, I remember I started getting involved with all these bad things. I started going just out all the time. I was out all night. I would just go to parties all the time. I would just hang out with all the wrong people. I picked up smoking for a while. A lot of people didn't know that, but I did for a good month. And it's just, I was really unhappy with who I was. And I remember thinking one day, I was in Old Town, and I was just really unhappy. And I had another one of those moments where I had something on my mind, but I wasn't saying it, and it kind of blurted out, where I was like, I went to an alley to go smoke, and I was just ashamed of it because I didn't want anyone to know I did that. And so I was smoking, and then I remember looking at the ground, and I remember just kind of sighing out the phrase, I hate what I've become, I hate what I'm doing. And I remember just knowing then that I just really wanted a change. I just was kind of fed up with what the enemy was letting me believe in my own life and just what was happening to me. And so I remember at that time, I ended up getting enrolled in this class at Pi Hop, and it really helped kind of ignite that fire for God, because it's kind of like I was dormant and asleep, but then that kind of woke me up and was like, oh wow, God, He's such a merciful God, He's such a gracious God. He's loved me the same when I was that way to how He loves me now. It's still the same, it's still 100%. And so I remember that got me just thinking about the word desire and just what we desire, and how when you talk to a lot of people who aren't Christian, for some reason the word change has a lot of negative connotations to it, I believe, where if you're with someone, they're like, oh, I want to change you. You're like, oh, you don't like who I am? And I was just thinking about that with God, and people think, oh, when I have to be a Christian, I have to change, I have to follow all these rules and regulations, and just being a Christian is no fun, and just God is so judging, and He's just so harsh, and He's just so hateful, and He killed generations of people in the Bible and the Old Testament, and that's just how they view God. And I remember, I never really thought that, but I never really understood and really allowed God's grace and just his love to really wash over me. Because I remember kind of getting to this place and understanding that when you have a desire for someone, because we're in a relationship with God. Each one of us has our own individual relationship. Not one of us has a similar relationship with God. And how when you desire someone, you want to change for them. Because I was thinking, in my relationship with Regina, I've changed a lot. It might not be too apparent on the surface with a lot of you, but I'm not in a relationship with any of you but one. But in our relationship, I didn't go into it thinking, oh, I plan on changing everything about me for her. I hate who I am right now and just cast off this skin of this sinful self for her. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, oh, I just want to be with her. I just want to make her happy. I just want to love her, and I just want to treat her how she deserves. I want to be a good, God-fearing man for her. And so I remember thinking, just as time goes on, you just inherently start to change for that person because you want them to feel loved. You want to do things for them that will make them happy. You want to better yourself. You want to become more in sync with them. You want to just love them more. And the same goes true with God. And I've been really kind of experiencing that, especially after I decided to become a pastor, and I've really had more time to study the Bible and really just study different books that talk about just Trinitarian love and just talk about grace and just talk about his love. And I've really had a good chance to see what that looks like. And with desire, I noticed when I was just living my very backwards life a year ago, I had a desire for just the flesh. I just had a desire for earthly things that don't matter. And because of that, I just had no desire for God. I had no desire to chase after him. I had no desire to do things that were holy, to do things that were right. And I got Galatians 5 verse 24. Sorry, I didn't give you any of these. And it says, those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires. And I remember looking in just my iPhone because I have a Bible app, and it's kind of one of those, I forget the term, any of the people here with masters, if you know the term for it, just one of those like glossaries of just like all the words. You could look up just the word desire and it shows you everything. Concordance, that's it. And so my phone has this built-in concordance, and I was looking through, and I just typed in the word desire, and I was looking at just in Psalms and like Song of Solomon, just all these, there are just dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of the word desire. And they're always used in different contexts. And in this instance, it's used where it talks about our humanly flesh. And how when Christ died for us, all those desires, all those sinful things, they were sent to the cross with him. And they were just crucified with him. And even though we may partake in them, even though we are still human, even though we still make mistakes, we're still forgiven of those. And so just coming into an understanding of when we have a desire for God, the desire for our flesh diminishes. The desire to do wrong diminishes. And in Song of Solomon 7 verse 10, I don't know if a lot of commentators, I think some agree, if not a few agree, that Song of Solomon was also about Christ talking to us, his bride. And it says, I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. His desire is for us. His desire is to give us what we need to grow, what we need to be a successful person, what we need to better our relationship with him. And then I'm just going to throw out verses. You don't necessarily have to put them up. Psalms 37 verse 4. Actually, put these two up. Psalms 37 verse 4. There are these two very similar psalms, and they're very close together. 37 verse 4 says, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. When you're happy, when you desire someone, when you truly desire someone, you're happy. You want to chase after them. And you delight in that person. And I've really been learning the difference between loving and liking someone. Because I know that you can love someone. You can love your brother. You can love your sister-in-law. You don't have to like them. You can love them all you want. You can just dislike everything about them, but you still love them. And there's a difference. And I remember this being a really big thing I learned in this school, or this this program I was involved in where God likes us. He likes who we are. He delights in our personalities. He delights in the things we do for him. He delights just how we interact with people, the jokes we make, the things that make us upset, just who we are. He likes us, and he delights in that. And then if you go to Psalms 20, verse 4, it says, "May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed." That's very similar to the last one that said, "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And both of those revolve around desire, because may he give you the desires of your heart. When we desire God, when we desire what he wants, he will in turn give us what we need in our life, what he wants for us in our life. Because God always has the perfect plan for all of us in every stage of every moment in every life. We can always choose to follow God, and we can always choose to be led by the Holy Spirit, and he will always guide us to the things that will always lead us to be happiest, to be most successful, to be just in a position of being loved and being cared for by people and just getting closest to God. And I've really just been going through that just lately, and I've just been noticing and really just been enjoying how each one of us here in every different stage of life, we understand a different aspect of God. I remember giving a really short sermonette at LA Church, or at the LA GCI congregation, and I was talking about the different aspects of God, and how God really gave me just kind of a revelation of his love, and how, I don't have the verse on me. Does anyone, I know someone here knows it, the love verse, where it's like, love is patient, love is kind. Does anyone know what it is? Whatever that mumble was, keep that in spirit. I should have this on here, so I'm going to turn around. Anyway, actually I don't need to turn around, because my attention's all on you. It doesn't matter if it's up. You all know that verse. It's said at every single wedding. And so, I don't need to look at it. And so, I remember giving such a sweet revelation about just God and who he is, and how that those entire verses that talk about love, how it's patient, how it's kind, how it does not envy, how it does not boast, how it's slow to anger, how it's just all these things, that entire verse, that entire passage, the word love can be replaced with the word God completely, because God is love. And all of those identify different aspects of God. How God is patient, God is kind, God does not boast, God does not envy, he is slow to anger, he does all this other stuff that it says there. I don't want to turn around that, so I'm trying to keep all my attention. It's rude for a speaker to turn his back to the crowd. Yeah, and so I remember after realizing that, I realized that at a point in time we don't always know or always don't understand each aspect of God's love. How we don't always understand how God is patient. We could have been raised with a parent or just our siblings or just friends who were really not patient with us. They were just really rushed, and they always had these high expectations of us, and we always seem to fail them. And so just growing up, or when you're an adult, you think God isn't patient with me. He always wants this for me at this deadline, and if I don't, then I disappoint him. And how that changes when we go through certain experiences, when we forgive people, when we keep our eyes on God, when we desire him, he will reveal more, or we will also understand his love on different levels. And the one that I've been understanding is just that he likes me, that he delights in me, and that just me as a person, just everything I am, and everything that composes me, everything that makes Anthony, and everything that makes everyone here you, he delights in. And he desires you 100%, just as much as he loves you. He loves you, he likes you, and he desires you, all three of those, and then a lot more. And it's just me, I've been coming to a realization of just his desire for me, and that he's always pursuing me. Otherwise, he's pursuing all of us, otherwise he wouldn't bless us on a daily basis. And I've just been noticing in these small instances every day just how much God desires me, how much he desires my well-being, how much he desires me to feel loved. And I remember every day I'm seeing this now. I'm being much more attuned to God's really gentle and subtle voice, because he's such a humble God. He's not envious, as it says up there. Or not envious, he does not boast. He does things in a really subtle manner. And I remember this one wasn't so subtle, but I remember, was it last week where I was begging for money? It was last week, right? Okay. It was last week where I was begging for money, and at that time, I literally didn't have anything just yet. I was going to receive stuff, and already by that time, out of $1,000, I already have $925 in a week's time. And that's just from the love of people and just God's desire, for me to see me, let me phrase this right. Because I have a desire for God, he wants to give me the desires of my heart, which are for him, which are to train myself so that I can become a pastor one day. And so he's been granting me the desires of my heart, which are to chase after him. And so I want to go to this international conference, and he's really been granting me the desires of my heart because I've been chasing after him, and he's made it possible to go. Because I already know I'm going to be able to go before even starting this whole fundraising campaign to make it sound fancy. I already knew that he was going to deliver, because I've been going into a place where I can really trust God, although we all can trust God, but we always go into different stages in life where we can trust him to a certain extent, or we understand we can trust him in this, and this, and this, and it keeps on growing throughout eternity. And so I've just been revolving. I know in this message I've just been revolving around desire, because it's so important, because lately I've also learned, because I've been with Regina, and because it's been such just a good and just godly relationship, that I've been seeing what desire looks like, what a godly desire looks like, what a pure desire looks like. And when you're with someone, you desire to be better. You desire to cater yourself to them. But God is such a humble God that he will still desire us. He'll still love us, even though we can hate him, even though we can turn our back to him and run the other way, like in the prodigal son story. We can do that, and he's still there waiting for us. He'll always be there, and he'll always be happy, and he'll always embrace us, and he'll always throw a party for us when we come back to him. And I've just been seeing and just been so happy that I've been with Regina, because it also has allowed me to understand how God's love, how deep a certain aspect of God's love is, and this aspect of desire, and how he always chases after us. I forget this one song, some worship song that says how his love will like chase you down. I forget. I don't know if anyone knows it. But I really love that line, and I really just adore it, because it's so true. Because whenever we're in a relationship, I remember Pastor Burmy said something interesting the other day. He was saying how he knows this guy who thinks he doesn't need to read the Bible. And then he was comparing it to marriage, how as soon as you get married, you're not just like, oh, I'm married, now I can just relax and take it easy. I'm sure all of you who are married know that. You don't just get married and then you're just like, oh, it's going to be stagnant from here on out. This is the best it'll ever be. It just stops from here. No. With any relationship, marriage, or just a divine relationship, it grows. And you have to work at it. For us, we have to spend time with God. We have to desire him. And he can even give us that desire. He can make himself more appealing. Because to every person, reading countless books can be monotonous. For me, I'm still learning to get a reading stamina up. I don't have it yet. But I know pastors do a lot of reading. Theologians do a lot of reading. So I'm kind of building up my reading stamina. I don't have much of it. A lot of TV stamina. But just understanding what desire looks like, at least in my life, and just how much God desires me, and how just on a daily basis he will bless me, he will love me, and he'll just show his love, and he'll make sure I feel loved, because now when I look at the small ways he blesses me every day, the small ways I understand his love better, I feel really loved, I feel really taken care of. Like a child would be loved by his father who takes care of him, like a father who takes his son out to get like some food or a toy or new clothes or something. They feel really loved and they feel really taken care of, and that's how I've just been feeling lately. And I know that it was like that before. It's just I wasn't tuned into God. I was being so negligent to him, although he loved me just as much then as he does now. And just going back to this whole relationship thing, it's just been so eye-opening to just see it and how much I myself in a relational aspect have changed. Because when I was first with Regina, it's something I suppose I got from my dad. I don't know if many of you know, he can be a very analytical person. I remember Helen was saying that when she was talking about when they first started dating and how my dad was just this family man and he wasn't this like super romantic guy. And how I thought at the time when I first started dating Regina, I thought I was this super romantic, super suave guy. I'm just going to sweep her off her feet. I'm going to make her heart just explode on a daily basis. And after it's done exploding, I'm going to mend it. And I'm going to at night and just care for her. And I'm just going to love her so tenderly. And I thought I was a man. But quickly Regina humbled me. And I learned just how imperfect I was and how growing I had to do. And I think a lot of people here who've been in a long-term relationship have learned that even right now, if you reflect back to when you first started dating, you were so different. You were so completely different. You were so opposite. And I remember learning when we were at Abel's bachelor party number 1, we were talking about just advice for just relationships, and how after a point in time we learned that differences after a point in time we realize that those differences aren't bad, but they actually complement each other. And just as time goes on, as we desire the other person, we start changing for them. And I remember with Regina, I was kind of an analytical person. It's like, I would be really nice, I'd do romantic gestures, but to a certain extent, I wasn't as expressive, I wasn't as loving in a way that she received it, as well as I thought I was doing. And so as time goes on, as I've grown and gotten to know her, as I've talked to her more, and really just grown, just attached to her and more in love with her, I've just seen how much desire I have to make her happy on a daily basis, how much desire I have to go out of my way to spend time with her, to get her nice things, to do nice things for her, whether I'm just like dead tired in the middle of the night, I'll always do it. And it's not like a chore. It's not something I'm just like, oh, I have to do it because one day you'll give me some money to make up for all this time I've spent and invested in you. No, it's not like that at all. I do it because I love her and because I care for her and because I desire her, and I desire her to be happy. And that's exactly what God wants with us. He desires us to be happy, to understand and to feel his love, because he's always giving 100% of his love. And this seems to be a common thing I say in messages, and I'm starting to see that now, that God is always showering us with 100% of his love, like a faucet pouring out at full blast. And with things we go through, certain like pains and just hardships we go through in life, we build up certain walls and we put up certain filters like a funnel, and slowly his love that's coming out like a waterfall or just like a faucet becomes a tiny trickle. And so as we desire God, as we look towards him, those walls get stripped away until we can slowly, through eternity, understand how deep his love is. And so just on a daily basis, I urge you all to just spend time with God, because that's primarily how you will grow closer to him. Just like in a relationship with a human, you're not going to grow close to them just by thinking about them all day, or just being in love with a picture of them on Facebook all day, just writing them notes all day that never get sent to them. No, you're going to get closest to them by talking to them, by spending time with them, by learning who they are, learning how much they love you, understanding your love for them. And the same is with God. The more time you spend with him, the more you'll understand how much he loves you, and you'll appreciate all the small things he does for you on a daily basis.